Are you ready for the divine feminine revolution? Let's get vulnerable and go deep.
Hey, hello, and welcome to the Divine Feminine Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Monday, coming at y'all with the very first episode of season 4 with one of my most favorite people, Andrea Cuna, who, if you have been following my progress and the evolution of my brand, is definitely the mastermind behind a lot of this. So here we are live. And Andrea, I'm going to just do a quick little bio on you, and then you are in tow with baby. We've got the baby on the podcast as well. And so we're just going to go ahead and give you like mom points for making all the things happen, and also the grace to, if you need, the baby needs something, baby comes first. And that's what I love about being an entrepreneur, is that you really can make balance career and family. And that's why a lot of us get into it. Not to say that it's not stressful. I'm sure we'll get into that as well. But just wanted to say that your beautiful baby's with us. So maybe she'll make an appearance, but definitely she gets number one priority. She's top billing. Andrea, you had such a diverse career. You've worked corporate, you've worked Montessori school, you've done the Wine Fest. I'm sure you can fill in the details here. But then you joined my Fearless Feminine program. We go way back. You actually helped me with another business venture about a decade ago, and that's when we started to collab. And then you joined my Fearless Feminine, and which, by the way, is launching now. So get in, everybody. The early bird. When does the early bird end? I don't remember.
October 25th. So 2 days.
2 days to save $500. Love to have someone besides me being the detail person. Love that I can just ask you that right off the top of your head. But Fearless Feminine really was sort of the launch point for you to go out on your own as an online business manager. So we're going to get into the nitty gritty of all that. And then I'm just going to spoil it a little bit. Like very soon after you got pregnant and obviously have a baby. And same thing happened to me actually when you knew me way back 10 years ago, was when I was starting with my business and baby in private practice. And so it's one of those things where you see the evolution of things, but definitely balancing a new baby and a new business is pretty intense. And so talk about the Fearless Feminine, right? You got to manage that fear as we're going through all the tough stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So fill in the details a little bit with whatever you want to share about your bio. And then hopefully I got some of the details correct. Feel free to share like whatever makes sense with your story, and then we'll just dive into some of the hot topics.
Yeah, for sure. It is very bizarre for me to be on this side of the screen. I'm very much a behind the scenes person on the back end of things. So yeah, even listening to you talk, I'm just like, okay, hold on. I got to check my face because I'm not actually editing
Your face
this
is
video.
beautiful.
I think it's all in the spirit of Fearless Femme showing up, and for year round right now, it is she's got something to say. And so I am very much challenging myself. When you asked me if I wanted to be on your podcast, I took it as a challenge for myself to really put myself out there and step on the other side of the camera for once. So I will do my best to not ramble and
Rambling
but
totally
filling in the gaps.
loud.
I think it's been a journey. I think, as you mentioned, I've got my little one here. She was supposed to be napping and thought I had everything aligned. That's the way life goes sometimes. When you lay down the best plans, that just opens the door for them to get shaken up on you. And that's one of the big lessons that I've learned in life throughout my journey. I got my start working at the Museum of Science in Boston, straight out of college. I did my co-op there. And then from there, I ended up doing food and wine festivals, the Massachusetts, Nantucket area, and then ended up in Tennessee where I met you, totally burnt out on production life because that is a lot to just be going all the time, thinking through all the details, and just really high pace, high energy nature of the event production industry.
Yeah.
Hella burnt out, and also like a mission of, or my own like personal life lesson has been finding that work-life balance. It is something that does not come easily to me and has been very much an area of focus of growth for me. So I said, moved to Tennessee, met you there. I took an admin position while I was there, and in my own nature, I was like, I need to calm down. I need to take a break a little bit. I'm going to answer phones for a little while. And then at my 90-day review, I was like, y'all need an operations manager. And then they were like, okay, would you like to be our operations manager? And I said, oh, okay, fine. And then I ended up there again. But yeah, so from there, I moved back up to the DMV area. So I'm in Maryland right now. But yeah, I worked at Montessori school. So again, I always have a hard time when people ask me, what do you do? I think it's interesting, one, that especially in our country, people focus on what do you do? Your job is your identity. And I think very much it's so much more than that. So for me, it's hard to explain this winding journey that I've taken. But anyway, that's my ramble.
Someone's stealing the show.
Yes, she's here. So she's the little hand creep up.
Oh my God. I gotta say, I feel like I'm like vicariously living through you a bit because y'all know me. I love my psychic readings. And so there was like some psychic promises of maybe a second one. I feel like maybe that ship has sailed, but it's been good, maybe a little bit of birth control also as far as just seeing you go through the process of having a second baby. You also have a son how old is he these days?
He is 7 years old. So.
Awesome. 7 is such a sweet age. Depends on if they're angry or not.
Kind of. I say on his 7th birthday.
I don't know, with the little sister on his heels, maybe not so much, but
yeah.
I just want to highlight, it's so exciting to see that you can be an introvert and still have a business. And I think particularly social media is like such a big part of everybody's business, even if you have a brick and mortar business, that I think a lot of people can get turned off by that. Can I have a business without social media? And I just want to applaud you, one, for going for it, 2, for pushing yourself, just like how we do in Fearless Feminine, to show up, even though it's a little bit scary, especially launching season 4 of our episode here and doing it with a baby in tow. There's definitely been a few podcast episodes where Luna made some special appearances and they were definitely a little bit more intense for me, just juggling all the different realms of life. Can you compare and contrast a little bit what it was like with your son when you were working corporate versus what it was like to be pregnant and have a baby now that you have your own business?
Oh my goodness. That is a great question. This is a female-friendly show, so I'm going to pop a boob out and get this baby taken care of.
And can I just say to Nurse Online on a podcast, I'm going to give you 10x points for that because I think that is not only vulnerable, but also just so great. And I remember that when I had a baby, I was in private practice as a therapist and I would nurse in between sessions. Sometimes my husband would drop the baby off for a few minutes. I'd nurse, whatever. But that felt so edgy to be okay, am I doing something bad? And I think we've come a long way in nursing over the past 10 years, but I just think that's such a huge visibility thing. And women should be, pumping's the worst, right? Mm-hmm. Women should be able to take care of their babies as priority number 1 in my mind.
Sure. So that's exactly where my head was at. With your last question, you asked the difference between raising Bodhi when I was working full time versus now being home with Eva and balancing the work life there. And so it was hell. It was not fun.
Which one?
Really, well, with Bodhi, having to work full time and have him in daycare was really challenging. In one respect, it was easy it was less challenging in the respect that I could drop him off and I had other caregivers in his life, which is just a huge relief to have that break and to be able to leave the home and go do something, because I did stay home with him for the first 10 months, but I think by the time that 10 months rolled around, I was ready to be back in the office. But it's just the number one thing I was least prepared for when it came to having a baby was childcare, and realizing that it takes way more than just 2 parents or even just 1 parent to raise that child. You really need that village support. And in the area that we were in, childcare was really hard to come by. And then balancing the schedules, we had them in a part-time childcare because that was the best option that we can find in our area. Luckily, I was working in a place where my director was really understanding. I was like, hey, listen, I only have part-time childcare for him. It's the best I could find for him. I didn't want to compromise on his care. So I said, if y'all want to keep me, you need to work with me. And she's absolutely. So I shifted my schedule from a nice cushy 9 to 5 to a 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. So it was waking up at 4:30 in the morning because the commute was not great either. So it was like waking up at 4:30 in the morning to get there in the dark and then rush over home to pick him up from daycare, get him fed, and then that's from 2:30. Then I'm doing the caregiver role from 2:30 on. So like playmate and dinners and then bath time, then packing lunch, then going to bed and trying to maintain a sense of self throughout all of that. So that was really hard. And then COVID happened as well. So then he got furloughed and I got the return to stay-at-home mom life, which I so cherished, but returned to work to a Montessori school and was able to bring him with me. So it's been, it was just like trying to figure it all out was really challenging and exhausting at the same time. It was exhausting in that regard compared to now I'm here with Eva. The difference, I think, is so much brighter. So
you still get the 3:30 wake up calls. You just don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah, I don't have to go anywhere. We were talking about whether we wanted to have a second kid. That was one of the primary drivers to me leaving my full-time position that I was at. I won't have a second kid if I'm not going to be able to be present. With Bodhi, he was going to kindergarten and I was like, I want to be able to get him off the bus. I don't want to have him like getting shuffled here and there. I see him to tuck him in at bed at night. With Eva, I was like, I don't want to have to do that daycare juggle again. So I was like, if we're doing a second one, I've got to figure something else out. And so that really set the stage for me trying to think creatively about what I can do to still contribute financially and be a parent and bring a second kid in.
And the mom guilt is real, like whether you work full time and have to do the daycare thing, or if you're doing a little bit of both, or you work for yourself. You're such a good example of all the challenges that sucked the first time are easier now, but now you have a whole new set of challenges.
Yeah.
We're no stranger to that in the business world because that's just how things are. But just to say, whatever your situation is for the listeners out there, like momming is hard no matter what, no matter how much support you have, no matter if you're working full time, if you're in a business, it's always just like a juggling act. And so I always tell my pregnant and new moms when they come to see me as clients, I'm like, first step, we need to lower your expectations because I remember my daughter didn't sleep for the first few years, like 5 years. And so I just felt like I was drunk from lack of sleep and interrupted sleep for such a long period of time. And so I wasn't, just FYI, but it felt that way because I was so sleep deprived. So I just remember the first couple of years just feeling, even though I had my own business and was working part-time and had grandparents and support and everything, it was still a shit show. And I think a big piece of that is just the mom guilt, whichever way you have it. I feel like you feel guilty about whatever you feel like is not clicking or the opposite end of it. And so I do think that mom guilt can just be so toxic because if you are having mom guilt, it's because you want to be a good mom, right? And so that should be good enough. Like people who are not really good parents probably aren't too concerned about their performance. So that's already a good sign. But we don't want to feed into the guilt, right? Because it can totally take over and ruin the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I just had a conversation with my neighbor yesterday because I was saying how Eva is really good at independent play and I'm able to set her down. And she was stressing about how she can't put her kid down at all. And every 2 seconds he wants to do something different. And I was like, yeah, but then I'm trying to figure out this work balance thing because she's good at playing independently, but she's really putting me through the ringer when it comes to napping, which I need those nap times in order to get work done. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, maybe I need to just work while she's up and playing if that's when she's actually okay on her own. Yeah. But I feel guilty having her up and playing and then I've got my computer open. And so no matter what you do, you're going to feel guilty about it. But she was awesome and reassured me. She was, no, it's really healthy for them to establish that sense of independent play. Do not feel guilty about it whatsoever. But the difference between with Bodhi and now home with Eva, one of them is really just the juggle. And there's no structure. You don't have the structure of external forces saying, no, you have to be here at this time to this time. You don't have that structure. So you have to self-impose all of that structure. And so it takes a different level of discipline when it comes to trying to figure out when you're going to get the work done and carving out that for yourself. And then, drawing those lines of balance.
And you didn't even really get a maternity leave. You were pretty much working through that anyway. So I get it. That's a line out of my book here. It's funny being fearless feminine because I feel like the fearless part is a little more masculine, take the action even if it's uncomfortable. The feminine part is a little bit more like trust, listen to your intuition, get into feminine flow. But I know we're both hard workers. And so that can sometimes be a struggle to let that happen and not feel like, oh, I want to produce and I want to do a good job for everybody and all those sort of things. So what was it like running your business through?
Yeah, I think that it worked out pretty well. I set the stage where I was like, hey, I just want to keep on rolling because I've got clients on retainer and kind of didn't want to skip a beat. Hey, girl, maybe you need to still work on carving some space out for yourself because that's important for all the moms out there. Don't forget to take care of yourselves. But I think I've got clients on retainer, so I was able to just front load the work and I projected out what was going to be going on for the next 2 months. I delivered on everything that was pre-planned and I said, I'm going to go quiet for 2 weeks, but everything else should be either automated or in place already.
And like me, since you work for me, I was like, oh, okay, she's probably going to just be like, hey, I need some more time. Actually, I probably need a month or two. I was just expecting that, but like, it was very seamless and you really pre-planned it well enough that just hats off to you. I don't know how you achieve that. I get it. Sometimes you just feel like you have to. I'm starting to write some posts about this, but this has been a little bit on the down low. I had gallbladder surgery a month ago. And so y'all, oh my God, it was so good to have a team. The people in my life were like, how is she posting? Isn't she in the hospital? So it was one of those things where it was so great to have some of that stuff already pre-planned and automated and everything. I went to the psychic fair right after and was like, getting a little psychic reading. And I was like, I'm planning on going back to work like Tuesday. I had been a week in the hospital and then was going back after 3 or 4 days. And then she pulls out the 10 of swords and she's, no, you're not. So I totally get sometimes financially or just because people are depending on you or sometimes your own like hyper responsibility. Sometimes we have to go back sooner than we would wish to. But I do love the business sense because I feel like even though maybe you have to jump back to work quicker, like maybe you're not working as many hours or you have more freedom to reschedule something if you need a day off or if the baby needs something or whatever. I definitely was so amazed at like how well you handled that. And so it's interesting just to hear the kind of like before and after between working corporate and having a baby versus being in your own business. Now, you mentioned in the beginning sort of the introvert piece of things. And I think a lot of people are like, oh God, the last thing I would want to do is appear online or be a public figure or draw attention to myself. And you have just manifested a few clients, all through like word of mouth, which that really is the best referral system. I think people don't give word of mouth really enough credit, but just curious, can you speak on the journey of being an introvert entrepreneur and just how that, I think you were destined. So in my mind, it just fell into place, but can you give some words of encouragement to the people out there who don't want to be front facing?
Yeah, sure. I'd say your personal network is your biggest asset. And I think I got a lot of encouragement through you. I was in your Fearless Feminine coaching program. So at the time that I was starting this business venture, I was just wrapped up into this like enormous like hug of support and like feminine energy. So I had a lot of courage from that. So one, your personal network, one in terms of just like your support, and they're your best cheerleaders. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you just need to get that validation because you have a lot of value, even though you might not think that you have something to offer. Your strengths are your strengths, and there are people out there who don't have what you have. Even if you think it is, completely, it comes so natural to you that it seems like it's not a skill. It can be the biggest void in someone else's life. And so I think for me, it was like that worthiness. It's the introvertness and like the worthiness stuff I had to heal and find and tell myself, like, you do actually have value to offer to other people. Your personal network is definitely your best asset in terms of supporting you and championing you and giving you those boosts of encouragement. And then also in terms of giving you leads into your connections, because your personal connection, your network, they know you. So they'll be able to put you in front of people and connect you with people who they know will be a good match. And so I think I just got to do a shout out to Becca. She is Angel. So she was my biggest like cheerleader going into this venture, aside from you, Megan. And yeah, she needed some support in her real estate business, and she started paying me to do some things for her. And just the act of being paid for my services as me, Andrea, like independent of any other corporate title, just gave me this like really boost of encouragement, and the opportunity to practice out and just feel out what my services are. So I think, yeah, so using your personal network, and then from her, I got reconnected with you, and then I got another client out of that Fearless group. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot to be said, especially in this day and age of like social media. There's so much noise out there. It's so loud and it seems so intimidating and daunting. So don't forget there's a lot to be said for like the personal connections, because I'm very much like the human to human.
And I think it's a great business model, just in the sense that most people have businesses, need to have some kind of social media platform. And then obviously lots of people want to be like coaches and educators and things like that. And so I think that really is an in-demand sort of field, is like the behind the scenes kind of support work. I think one thing that was really cool, I'm obsessed with human design. So we did your human design. And I love, one thing that I think is so great about you and why everyone should hire you right now is that you're creative. Like we can talk. You've got all the social skills, you've got the creativity, you've got all the like the feminine stuff, but like you are so detailed, which is not a skill that I have. It's been so great to have you be the mastermind behind the business, and particularly with some of the tech stuff, you had to teach yourself, like you're self-made. And so just really love to see the journey. Obviously we love that the tech has gotten to the point where it's getting easier and easier. Like right now we're streaming across multiple platforms. This podcast is going to my YouTube channel. I've got 2 YouTube channels, the podcast channel and then my Dr. Megan Monday channel. We've got it streaming to Facebook, but I don't think I could have set all that stuff up without you. And so I just want to say, what has that learning curve been around like you're like, let me play around with it. You do all my YouTube videos. What's it been like to offer professional services where you're learning as you go?
Yeah, I think that it was interesting because my deep insecurity on my career trajectory has become my superpower in that regard. Because like I said, I always felt really insecure about how I went from one job to another, where I'd be in a position for maybe 2 or 3 years max. And I was like, I'm not putting my roots down. I'm not growing. I'm not showing growth in this area. And I feel like a jack of all trades, master of none. And I'm like, who am I? It created this whole identity crisis and really hurt my sense of value, because I'd be applying for jobs and I'm like, I don't know, they want this level of expertise or whatever. But now on the flip side of it, I realized if I look at it as through like the OBM or the VA lens, all of those jobs that I had were past clients, and I picked something up from every position along the way. At one point, I was working hand in hand. I was like doing the books on a $6 million budget and managing those funds for a major resort, and then working as a business manager for a Montessori school. And so I picked little things up all along the way. And I think that I realized my superpower is being adaptable. And I have the ability to learn and problem solve and troubleshoot. And that's actually why I went from job to job, because I would get to the point where I'm like, okay, I understand this now, and now I'm bored, because I thrive off of like the learning and the changing. And you could probably find something in my human design about that. But
even if you have a really great job, like I've had great jobs where like I had incredible bosses who really wanted to celebrate their employees and gift them and all this sort of stuff, but it was still like, once you're an entrepreneur, like it's so hard to go back, because it's just all the freedom. Just wanted to comment on the jack of all trades. So the actual full quote is jack of all trades, master of none, though oftentimes better than a master of one. So off that second part, but it's actually a compliment. And I always joke that I'm like a hobby dabbler. I've got the sort of ADHD profile of like always getting bored and wanting something else and that kind of thing. But to really be pretty good at many different things, I think is actually such a huge thing. And to be a virtual assistant OBM, like it's so necessary because not only are you juggling multiple businesses and clients, but you're juggling multiple platforms, multiple tech, like all of the things. And so in my mind, first of all, let me just say you're so worthy. Like you're amazing. You're incredible. I totally understand. I struggle with the worthiness. I didn't say that on camera, but totally to spit. I have the Open Heart Center. I'm guessing you probably have that as well, but I haven't looked at your chart in a while. But it's that empath healer thing of like never feeling good enough, partly because we're like absorbing in all of the sort of chaotic vibes of the universe. And we take that on and think it's our own when often it's not even ours. But that open heart, I think, is also, it makes you just like such an incredible person and healer because it's like you care and you're compassionate. The worthiness obviously can lead to overgiving. But honestly, like when you're with someone who overgives, like it can feel so nurturing. I think that's what I love about Fearless Feminine. That's what I love about your services is we really care. And so not only do you get the great like relationship, sort of emotional support, when we have our team meetings, it is like a therapy session, especially with my whole little drama around the surgery. Like y'all have been so invaluable. And to get to the point in my business now where like this current launch, like I didn't even have to do anything like at all. Like I'm appearing for this podcast episode. I'm filming a YouTube video and I've ever wrote like a couple posts that are new, but that's it. Like y'all are doing everything behind the scenes. I also have another team member, Leonie. She's going to be on next week. So just preview that a little bit. Andrea, you really spearheaded. It was just you and me there for a long time. And I just want to say you've been amazing. So I just am so grateful to have you on the team. And this was the first time I remember when my dad got cancer a few years ago and I just went dark for 6 months, I think. And there really wasn't a business without me. And even though I work some still in my private practice, like that is a business that literally, if I don't show up for the session, it does not exist without me. So it's been so rewarding with your help and the team's help to create something that is a legacy and that will exist beyond me. And just I wrote a little bit about this on a post. The last video I did right before my surgery, and it was unexpected surgery. I like didn't know it was going to happen. I was like sick and like throwing up, but like in typical like mom mode, I was like, I'm going to shoot a YouTube video because I told Andrea I'd have it done by this week. And so I shot that video of like why you should start a YouTube channel after 40. Go check it out. And then I'm like in the surgery and I'm like so scared of medical stuff. So felt like a life-threatening experience, even if it was not officially. It was so beautiful, like how I felt so held by team, and that this launch that we did just a few weeks later has like really been like the most seamless launch. And it was like built on all the other launches that we did as well. And so I think it's just been so beautiful, one, to have that support and that you can do like the left brain and the right brain stuff. It's just such a gift to have. Having Andrea in your corner, like definitely everyone who's listening should go hire her. Especially I almost don't even want to promote you because you're that good. I want to keep you all for myself, but also want to hype you because you deserve the hype. And I've just felt so supported in a way that I've just never felt before, both in my brick and mortar business and in my online business. And so it's so exciting to get to that point where there really is a legacy. And for those of you that are creators, don't take for granted that you have the whole rest of your life to create things because none of us really knows. And I think the world's definitely in a crazy moment right now. I thought when we were first filming the podcast in the COVID years that was the crazy moment, which it was, but it's continued on. And it's escalated in certain ways. And so I think just to say, don't wait, like just get up and get going. And I really just want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast as well, because I know that was very edgy for you. And thank you so much for all that you've given to me, like personally and professionally, and to the team. And literally, it would not exist in its current form. Like the branding I'm just like in love with it. And you really like headed that at the beginning of the year. And now when I see my posts, I'm like, oh, who wrote that post? And it's like from me, but y'all did it all behind the scenes. So I'm so excited to get to that point in my own business. So excited to see that Fearless Feminine helped you launch your own business and made space for the baby, because we want to have it all, right? And I think there's that saying, you can have it all, just not at the same time. And I think that the closest you can get to having it all at the same time is entrepreneurship and motherhood. You might have to bring the baby on the podcast, but...
Yeah. You end up with having it all, and then there's some realities to that, but it's good. I think that's one of the amazing things for you, like your permission giving to really show up as you are.
Hi, she's already famous. What do you think her destiny is going to be if she's already in a podcast as a baby?
Yeah, just want to thank you, Megan, for giving me the boldness and the courage to do it as I am. I think, like I said, you're so permission giving to really show up in the world as you are. And there's so much power behind that. So thank you for all of your support and encouragement and all of that. And yeah, I'm putting it out there into the world.
Oh yeah, it's been such a joy, and I'm so glad that you're the first episode of season 4, because we've been on hiatus maybe like 9 months or so. So I think it was about a year ago we were doing season 3. And so yeah, it just feels so yummy to have you as the first one and have baby Eva as well, guest starring. And yes, I just like am eternally grateful to you, both for the reality checks, like you had mentioned the events. And I know that's one of our big initiatives eventually is going to be to host some like retreats and some live events. And I always love how you like reality check me when I'm like, let's do it next month. And you're like, wait, we need a year. So I also love just being able to really like I've been to many events, but I've not run one. And so to have someone who has the behind the scenes of the logistics of the retreats and like really what all it takes to go. Obviously, you did really big events, so that's a little bit different than a weekend ladies retreat, but just love the reality checks too, as far as keeping me, I have y'all call me out when I'm not in my feminine flow and I get into overachiever mode. So that's been a really good just wake up call to be like, oh, okay, yeah, we want to do this well when the time is right versus rushing into, oh, I see this online. Everybody else has a retreat and a membership and a signature program and a mastermind. But maybe you just didn't know them for the first few years until they got to that certain level. And so I think it's so helpful to have you both you're very permission giving and tell me yes a lot of the time, but then you also are like, wait, what? You want to do what? Which is super helpful as well. So I think, like I said, to have someone who's detail oriented and creative. I was doing an intensive with a coach and we were talking about different assets and stuff. And I was like, I have the most incredible team. That is my biggest brag. And like, you're like sisters to me. And I feel like not even just the logistics of it exists beyond me, but like y'all are part of the mission now. And it's just so beautiful to see it just like exponentially increases the impact when you have like multiple people going in on it. And then it's very gratifying for me to see also that you can have the personal life that you want to have. And Eva was like our first baby team member and she was on all the calls and now she's on the podcast. So it feels full circle. Luna's in school now, so she's not always interrupting things. But it's nice to see the tradition continue. And it's been really beautiful to reconnect with you and to work with you. And so are you taking clients? Are you interested?
You can definitely reach out.
Get on the wait list.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I've got a wait list. So it's all about alignment and capacity and space. But I am in the position where I'm looking at the next phase of things.
So now that you've done the podcast, do we feel like a little bit more excited about doing some like front facing social media? Obviously, we're going to get some clips of this one going, so you'll have those. But does that feel like a little less scary now that you've done a bit? Don't have to say yes just because it's me.
I know Leonie was asking me for pictures and I was like, all I have is a selfie that I took because you would ask me for a photo.
Yeah.
Get some, because I think there's a balance there and it's nice. And to level up, I think there's just a little level of official photography and branding and all that kind of stuff that I need to do for myself for sure.
Yeah, so. I'm definitely a come as you are kind of person. And thank you for coming as you are. We were talking about the green room. So I think as a new mama, I have my hair down today, but usually I'm rocking the messy bun, even professionally. And so I do think you see the glamour shots of the coaches and stuff. And then when they show up looking like death with a hoodie on, you're like, wait, what? Who's that person? So I like to have a little bit of the real and raw and then a little bit of the glamour there just to give like both pictures. So it's one of those things. But yeah, thank you so much for your time and thank you for your courage for coming up here and thank you for all the work that you do behind the scenes. So maybe I can rope you into some more episodes or some trainings or something like that. But thank you so much for coming and thank you all for watching and thanks for kicking off season 4. Come check out, we'll have another episode live next Wednesday morning, bright and early at 8. So we'll see how that goes. I'll definitely have my coffee for that episode. 8 a.m. Eastern. Leonie is on the other side of the world. She'll be in the evening. I'll be in the early morning. But come check out that episode. So we're starting to celebrate just with the team members and going from there. So we've got a really cool lineup for this year. And of course, join Fearless Feminine. This is the new one. We're having a half-day workshop all about heartfelt content. So like how you can have a curative impact with the world based on your content, because we know that's what it's all about in the social media game. We also have a $500 bonus, like I said, off for 2 more days. So get on that. I'm always the early bird when I buy stuff because I want the discount, right? Like I'm a bargain shopper. So I like my $500 discount. So get in on that. And we have the Business B School as part of Fearless Feminine. And this one is about she's got something to say. So thank you for embodying that today. And I thought maybe Eva was going to give a little, maybe she had something to say, give a little scream or something like that. But she let you do your thing. So we appreciate her for cooperating with that. But I know she's usually got something to say on the regular, right?
Oh, yes, especially these days.
All right, loves. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see everybody later. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Divine Feminine Revolution podcast. Make sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Want to keep the conversation flowing? Find us where revolutionary women gather to listen to their hearts, monetize their gifts, and change the world.